Hello, and welcome to AMA Ask Media Anything. My name is Karen Winters. I'm a professor at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. And I want to thank you for joining us for this conversation between our local media professionals and you, our audience. Recent research indicates that local media outlets are trusted by a majority of Americans, even as trust in our national news media is declining. And it's easy to understand why Acadiana has trust in our local media. In addition to providing us with important information about our area, they're also active participants in our community. So, who better to answer questions about our community and the media in our community than our own local experts? Here tonight to share their insight and answer some of your questions about the sometimes elusive media industry we have seen Trcalek. Excuse me. It's a tough one. Sean Trcalek, General Manager at KADN and KLAF, and Chuck Wood, General Manager of Delta Media Corp. To tell you a little bit about Sean, he studied PR, public relations, at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and before that, he graduated from Vermilion Catholic in Abbeville, where he grew up. And Sean now lives in Lafayette and is the GM at KADN and KLAF. And we have Chuck Wood, who's been managing media properties for over 30 years, 25 of those years in Lafayette. And his passion for broadcasting started as a young boy in Detroit, Michigan. And Chuck is currently the general manager for Delta Media Group. I'm going to tell you our format this evening. Tonight's program is really about facilitating conversation between media producers and media audiences. So if you have a question for our guests during this time, you can use a couple of hashtags to get in touch with us. First, there's hashtag AOC Free Speech Week, or you can use hashtag AMA Scene, which is AMASEAN, or hashtag AMA Chuck to ask us on Facebook, Twitter, or on Instagram, and we'll get those. They'll pull up right here on my tablet. So you can also call us at 337-366-8951. So thank you so much for joining us. We have some really great questions here. And the first question that we'll start with that's come in is, what's changed in your profession since you started? And what do you expect to happen in the next 15 years?
Wow. All right, well, I guess I'll go first. What's changed? Well, the Communications Act of 1996 changed. When I was in this business, I first went to work for a single AM station and then worked for an AM and FM station. And now I have 9 radio stations and 4 television stations that I oversee right here in Lafayette. So that's been a big, big change. And then I guess the second change has been the internet. We're in the entertainment business, and there's entertainment available everywhere in lots of different places, phones, tablets, computers. The car has always been known as a radio on wheels, and now it's starting to look like a smartphone on wheels.
Right.
So, there's just been lots of change. There's I don't know what you call it. There's more variety, more available outlets for media.
Yeah, and I'd imagine with all of those stations, more work for you in your case, right, Chuck?
It's I don't know that if I'm working any harder than I used to. I just have a few more balls juggling than I used to.
Let's see. How about you, Sean?
I think I'll echo a lot of what Chuck said. I mean, technology, the internet and technology has been the biggest change. Where people consume television has changed dramatically.
Right.
Different screens, still on a screen, but just and more splintered. There are more choices for people to consume media, but it provides different challenges. Local broadcasting, I think, is still, I know is still viable, still strong, still important. Both what Chuck and I do. I started in radio, and there's Chuck knows this. It's hard to get radio out of your veins. I was a disc jockey, and it's so much fun. But there are a lot of places that you can hear media or watch media. So that's been a big challenge, and that's been the biggest change. People change, managing people changes, but from a revenue standpoint, from a sales standpoint, I mean, delivering advertising to local businesses is still relevant and has stayed the same. But the technology, the internet is by far the biggest change.
Mm-hmm. And how do you expect the internet to impact what you do in the next 15 years?
I wish I had the crystal ball for that one.
Right.
Yeah, look, it's changing so rapidly. I don't even know that anyone's thinking in the next 15 years.
Right.
I mean, it's just from year to year. It's light years of, of where we're 5 years ago. I'm doing things now I didn't even think of 5 years ago when I was in this business.
Mm-hmm.
It's, we weren't thinking about podcasting 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we weren't thinking about podcasting 2 years ago.
Right.
And now it's one of the most talked about subjects in my industry. Mm-hmm. And it's things that we're looking into right now. We're dabbling in it, but I don't know if we're doing as good a job as I'd like us to do. But it's there. It's different. Who knows what's going to, as generations change, the needs and the type of media that's being used change. I hired a young woman with our company about 18 months ago, and not long after I hired her, we were having the conversation. So what do you listen to on the way to work? What is it you listening to? And she goes, well, I listen to podcasts. That's the first time I had someone bring that up to me. It was 18 months ago. Mm-hmm. I think it's the internet's going to rule it. It's all going to go that way eventually. There still is a need for over the air, and I think there always will be. This past hurricane in Florida, every cell tower was down. There were still some radio towers getting the information out to people. That's going to be important. So, but I wish I had that crystal ball.
Right.
I agree. 15 years just doesn't even seem fathomable anymore, to imagine what's going to go on in 15 years. There was a time when, 5 years seemed even manageable, but things change so quickly. I don't know. I mean, I'm like Chuck. I don't know what the crystal ball is. What I do know is that there will always be a need to know what the weather's going to be like. There's going to be a need to know what's going on in our kids' school. There's going to be a need to know what roads are closed and where the hurricane is and where the traffic crashes are. Mm-hmm. And local media is going to continue to provide that. I just don't know exactly how. Mm-hmm. I know that neither of our companies are going to become nonprofit, so we're going to always have to find a way to monetize that.
Right.
I think we have to be very flexible. Mm-hmm. I hate to keep speaking for Chuck, but we both work for smaller local companies. I mean, we're based out of Houston, but we're a 2-market company, and there's advantage to that we can, we aren't stuck in a mold of, well, here's how we do things. For us, it means we can adapt and change, and the old cliche, you don't say we've always done it this way. That just doesn't exist anymore. What we did last year is really becoming irrelevant.
Right. So always staying on the pulse, always keeping up and being flexible. Okay. So another question that's come in is, who's your professional hero, mentor, or idol?
Wow. I had a man that I worked for back in the late 70s in Tyler, Texas. Mm-hmm. He's now deceased. His name was Bud Polisek. He and a banker and a guy that owned a trucking company bought the radio stations that I was working at, and he put faith in me to become a manager, to become a sales manager, and it was funny. He looked at me, he goes, "You're going to be one of my projects," and I kind of laughed, but he started me on the road to running radio stations, and he was really good. And he was really good to me, and he was a mentor, and stayed a good friend. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of weird and ironic. We shared a birthday too. It was kind of weird when we found that out. But Bud Polisek probably.
Okay, thanks for sharing that.
There's, for me, a lot of local, kind of anybody that took a chance on me and believed in me. There are a lot of local Acadiana legends, that stand out. and guys like Mike Mitchell and I worked together on radio. A lot of radio guys. Mike Mitchell, a guy named Tom Will was a general manager who promoted me into management. A guy named Dick Harbison, these are guys. Tom was at Channel 3. I started my TV career at TV3. Tom, put me in management. Dick Harbison put me on the trail to, hey, you need to step up your education and learn everything about the business because one day you'll be running stations. I worked for a guy in Monroe and in Knoxville named Joe Carrier. Joe was I call him a broadcast giant. CBS affiliate board, BMI board, NAB board, and Joe just kind of took me under his wings and said, I'm going to teach you everything about the business, everything you're willing to learn. And the guy I work for now, the CEO of Bayou City Broadcasting is a guy named Dwan McCoy. And I'm just learning every day, primarily leadership things. At this point, it's not to teach me about television and about broadcasting, about sales techniques, but it's about motivating people and leading people.
Right. And I would imagine multiple generations of people.
Yeah. Very true. There's a very big difference in our business between motivating salespeople, motivating an engineer, and motivating, an MMJ. And yeah, you're right. Different generations of people, and having to adapt to the way that they want to be led. But my job day to day is a leadership job. It's not blocking and tackling. It's motivation.
Right. I want to dig into a little bit more of kind of what's going on currently in our current media and social context. So one question came in that asked, with everything we used to consider reliable news now being suspected to be fake news, how does a consumer know that you're on the up and up?
I'll pass that on to Scene. He has the news channels. I don't. So
I'd like to be cliche and say if it's local, you can believe it. And I think as a general rule, that's true. Because we are local, we live here. The people that work at my station consume my product, and they care about what's right for their families. They have no vested interest in putting out fake news. We don't have agendas on a local level. I think we've gotten lumped, local media, local television stations, local news operations have gotten lumped in with, quote unquote, the media, which for me is national cable news, which is opinion based. And so that's problem one. We are not opinion based. Our news, we don't have angles. We try to cover all angles of stories, and we try to stay away from national stories unless it's relevant to Lafayette. The internet's also, there's no fact checking on the internet. So there's that. People see things online. I think that not knowing what to believe stems from the internet, from not knowing what to believe online, and from also hearing things on the internet that tell you not to believe the media. I think you hold your local guys accountable. Meaning, if a television station runs something that's factually inaccurate, you let them know. I know that people can call me directly, and they do. Our advertisers are more connected to us than they are nationally. So if my advertisers know that I'm going to be fair, they don't really care what political opinions are. But if we do something that's fake, I'm going to hear about it from my advertisers.
Right.
You could say cross-check things, but I hear people every day saying, well, but I don't know what to cross-check. Where do I go to cross-check to find out if something's accurate? If it's local, I like to say if it's local, you should expect to believe it.
Yeah, I think the fake news phenomena is more of a national issue. And as Scene said, probably, and look, I'll be frank, I don't even watch them, but the cable news channels, I can't watch that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I'm in the media, so they say. Fortunately, my company is different. We run entertainment media. We're 100% entertainment, television and radio. So I don't get into that game often enough. Well, I don't get into it often, luckily. But I think that's more of a national phenomenon. I think it stems from news channels.
The news
I,
channels,
I,
right.
and I will add that I don't want it to go without being said that it is dangerous. You know, I see local people primarily on online tapping into that fake news, fake media stuff, and it whips people into a frenzy that I'm afraid may end up leading to local journalists, being hurt.
Right. And that actually is a great segue into the next question that came up here, which is, have you ever been harassed on a scene for doing your job? Were you threatened? Were you harassed verbally? Were you harassed physically? And what was that like, or how did you feel?
I have not. I mean, I've been, in the old days as a shock jock, I've been thrown out of places, for doing goofy things that I'm not proud
We'll
of
talk about
35
those
years
later,
later.
yeah.
But no, from a local news standpoint, and I've got somewhat of a news background. No, I haven't because of credibility. I have had my journalists, lately. Get bad vibes, but not yet really threatened. But I think it's a matter of time unless people have to start speaking up and differentiate, as Chuck said, differentiate local and the other stuff.
I find it interesting that question come up today with the report of the guy that broke into the Fox News channel in Washington, D.C. today and then was shot. Again, I run entertainment entities, so it's different. But I did have a young man. I was running. Excuse me. I was managing a local rap station, and we had a young man come to the radio station on a Saturday, and I just happened to be there doing some work, and he was trying to force himself into the station to get his CD played. And I mean, it was scary. It scared the pants off of our female announcer that was there. And quite frankly, I called the police and they had to come arrest him. It was unnerving. And then again, today I just saw it on the national news before coming here. A guy broke in, kicked the doors in at the Fox affiliate in Washington, D.C., and the guard shot him in the chest. It can be scary. People. I think. I don't know. I don't know if it's mental illness. I don't know if the guy's hopped up on some drugs. I don't know. And they didn't say anything about it, but it can get scary out there. And I think for whatever reason, people can get scared. I think for some reasons, people see what's going on in the national media and they blame the local outlet. And I think that's kind of what happened today. So, not much happens like that in Acadiana, thank God, knock on wood, okay? And we hope it can stay that way.
Right, and I think that's why conversations like these are so important, because there is a real difference,
Agreed.
right, between the 24-hour cable news stations
Yes.
and who produce content, right, to keep
And
things
again-
on the station
and-
for 24 hours a day, right?
We're there to serve an audience. Radio stations. Chuck's got multiple formats that are there to entertain. Multiple audiences. I'm there to serve. I want people. We need people to listen to us and watch us. So I've got a vested interest in reflecting what the community is and wants to see and wants to hear and wants to know. But I think because we're broadcasters and we serve everybody, there's kind of some inherent risk that you're going to have. You're going to interact across paths with people that quite honestly aren't. As my dad would say, aren't playing with a full deck.
Right.
We didn't. That's another thing that's changed. 30 years ago, we didn't really worry about security in our radio and TV stations.
Never.
Now we got it.
Right.
No.
Right. Let's see. I have another question that's come in from Brother Jay from Lafayette. He asks, where is the Black media representation, and how have your organizations tried to incorporate the Black viewpoint?
Well, I can tell you that as part of Delta Media Corporation, we own and operate Z105.9, which is an urban adult contemporary radio station. That is a segment that, in my opinion, at times gets underserved. There's 3 or 4 African American targeted radio stations here in town. We have the only one that has a live morning show.
Okay.
Because of the finances or the search for ratings. You have a satellite morning show out of LA. You have one out of New York, and that's what's on my competition. And we have a local show. Joe Dupree does the show every single morning. He's here. He has local community leaders on the show with him every week, and they try to address issues and talk and feed information to the local community. So, where I sit, I think we do a darn good job. So it is being represented. Is it being represented totally? Well, maybe not. Dollars are not dictating that. Public companies are doing things a little different. We're a local company, and we like the fact that we are live and local with local people on the air.
Okay.
I'm proud of the work that we do. We answered a great question and says something about us. Bayou City Broadcasting is in Lafayette and Evansville, Indiana. We are owned by the only independent African American television station owner in the country. The only independent African American television station owner. So we're cognizant of diversity. We deal with it every day, but we don't. If we're doing our job, as a television station, as a broadcast TV station, if I'm doing my job properly, I'm representing everybody. This is as far as TV goes, is a heavier. We have a heavier black population than is normal. We're, close to 30%, which is high.
Right.
So we've got to deliver news and entertainment programs that meet that broad audience. We try to make sure that our on-air talent matches the community. Both of my excuse me, both of my sportscasters are African American. I've got an African American anchor. I've got African American, 3 African American MMJs. It's to represent the community and to represent the folks that are watching the television station. But diversity is important to us, and multiculturalism is at the root of our company.
That's excellent. I'm personally proud to hear all of that. Yeah. Okay. We have another question. I'm not sure that we're going to have the time to get to it, but one that just came in is, why are there no liberal talk shows in Acadiana? And if you watch SNL, there might be some debate about whether or not there is a liberal talk show in Acadiana.
Chuck can speak to radio, specifically with radio, but my owner has addressed, the guy I was just talking about has addressed this before. It's revenue. Right. It's revenue. He's had African Americans reach out to him and say, he's served on panels with other African American radio owners who've gotten criticism. Why do you guys air conservative radio? And those guys are like, they say, so that I can employ African Americans because I get revenue. It's a ratings game.
Okay. Yeah, it's excuse me, on the radio side, it's been tried. It's been tried many times, and it's not succeeded because of the revenue issue, plain and simple. But I've not been involved with it. The only talk station that I'm involved with is a sports station.
Okay.
So I don't get into that game, and but that seems, just from what I've read and what I've watched over the last 30, 40 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chuck
Awesome.
and Scene, for being here with us today. And thank you, the audience, for joining us for this episode of Ask Media Anything. We hope that you've enjoyed watching us and learned something from this conversation. And please stay tuned. We'll have Christian Mader, executive editor of The Current, up next at 7:30. And you can visit aocinc.org to find out about upcoming episodes of Ask Media Anything on AOC. And until then, we encourage you to stay engaged and informed with your community. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.